So you just pulled the other Nier Collab unit in NIKKE. Sure, she may not get as many fans and artwork than the other one, but regardless, today I'm going to go through various online sources as well as my personal experience with this unit to answer the question, A2, is she any good? My name is Psyche, let's get started. We'll begin by analyzing A2's kit. She is a rocket launcher user, but not really since she's holding a giant sword that happens to fire shockwaves. 6 shots in the magazine, charge time of 1 second, and a 2.5 multiplier on a full charge attack. Skill 1 activates whenever she uses the burst skill. Just like the 2B guide, I need to clarify that there's a difference between the wording using burst skill versus during full burst. This skill specifically works whenever A2 is the one to use the burst skill, not anyone else. When it does occur, A2's charge damage is increased as well as the explosion radius. This makes her quite unique in the sense that rocket launcher users boast having some of the best burst generation in the game. An increased radius means that you'll be able to hit more targets, which in turn gets you to full burst faster. However, with A2's charge attack, there is a slight animation delay before finishing the swing of her sword and getting ready again. This is the first time that something like this has happened. Some people online theorize it's a way to stop macros, meaning unlike previous units with spammable attacks, it's generally not worth it to not use full charge attacks with A2, so always charge up the shot to 100%. Skill 2. This basically reinforces the idea that you should always charge up the shot before firing it. The damage to parts bonus means A2 will perform better with bosses that have multiple destroyable parts, and less so with bosses that don't have as many parts. The burst skill known as Mode B. Upon usage, A2 will enter a state in which she will gain an attack up and increase charge speed. In return, her HP will be drained every second. The state will remain active unless A2's max HP dips below 40%. It's worth mentioning that Mode B will be active even when not in full burst anymore. As long as her HP is above 40%, this state will last indefinitely. While this burst skill is quite HP hungry, the buffs are monstrously powerful. This of course means that running a healer on the team is mandatory if you want Mode B to last for long. One other interesting detail is that Mode B will always be active assuming HP needs are met, but her skill 1 is not. So even if Mode B is still active when you're about to burst as A2, you should still do it in order to trigger her skill 1. Now let's talk about which skills to level first. In my 2B guide, I mentioned that I will be putting the priority, whether a skill should be leveled, into 3 categories. So I'll be using the same metric here. Skill 1 gets medium priority. I will push it to around 7 since it's just a straight up benefit with no drawbacks that I can see. It's a good vertical investment into the unit, so why not? Skill 2 gets medium priority. It allows A2 to excel more into her niche, is that she gets to deal more damage to bosses with parts. Burst gets medium priority again, but I would personally prioritize a little bit more than the other 2 skills, as the HP drain effect actually gets reduced the higher the skill gets, meaning she loses less HP over time as this gets leveled. It may even get a high priority if you don't have a decent healer invested, but the buffs are nice. And again, it's a good linear upgrade to make her stronger. Since A2 is your standard attack scaling unit, it makes the most sense that you will want, well, attack. Similarly to how pretty much to all the meta DPS units in the game, you'll want attack on your overload gear attributes. There's a caveat to this that I will mention later, but generally speaking, you can't go wrong with stacking more attack. Some more situationally good attributes include elemental damage bonus and charge speed. Given that she has a unique animation delay, the game essentially forces you to wait a bit between every attack, so it's not as useful. Some other attributes are better than nothing, but just aren't as good. For Harmony Cube, the generalist option is the Resilience Cube. If you're in the late game and have some max ammo overload lines, then the Bastion Cube is also a good choice. It reads that it will give you extra ammo every 10 shots, so you can essentially fire more rounds before having to reload. Since A2 is a rocket launcher user, the Adjutant Cube with increased charge speed is also a valid choice. And now we move on to teams. And this is going to be a major point of discussion of how good A2 is considered within the community. First, we'll need to cover all of A2's bases in terms of healing. She absolutely needs a healer on the team in order to maintain Mode B. There is quite the selection of candidates for this role. The most exceptional one regarded by many is Blanc, meaning that if you go the Blanc route, will also require you to run Noir as well. That being said, the Bunny comp is considered one of A2's best all-around support setups, as the constant healing and buffs makes her very easy to maintain. You can also use Rapunzel, Noise, or Summer Mary, as those can also maintain enough healing. For a more manual playstyle, since I don't have Blanc, so I can't use the Bunny comp, I resorted to a Pepper/Dala setup with Pravati to manually control Pepper to maintain A2's HP. This is also a team core that I quite like, but will require some manual play to get the most out of it. You also ideally want a character with cooldown reduction, as it allows A2 more uptime on the skill buffs. A good example team will be Leader, the Bunny comp, A2, and another flex unit. Good pairings include Alice or Maxwell, as they boost charge damage or charge speed, but that would mean you can't pair the two together in the team anymore. Now, overall, I would say A2 has definitely received a bit more discussion compared to 2B. So here's one of the major criticisms about A2. Her perceived best team at the moment features the Bunny comp and Leader. While this team is very strong and can compete with the top dogs in the game, as it turns out, if you pair it with some of the best support options, whom of which are literally good with almost any other DPS units too, then A2 can perform very well. The reason I like units like 2B and Snow White is that they can utilize units that are generally not considered meta, like Mast, Miranda, and Polly. This is good because it can free up your key meta units for other teams, as well as expanding the roster of viable characters that didn't see much play before. The thing about late game content is that you'll likely be fairly invested into solo or union raids, and in those events, you'll need to prepare 3 teams, meaning if you use the Bunny comp with Leader, you can't allocate those units for your other 2 setups. A2 does not change the way team building works and does not allow new units to shine. She utilizes existing broken supports to excel, which is hardly any different than most other DPSs. There is another caveat surrounding A2's kit. If we were to assume the trend from a past solo raid to continue, then the boss will always target the unit with the highest attack. If this is true, that's obviously very bad for A2, as keeping her above 40% is crucial to maintaining Mode B. Some possible solutions include putting a taunter on the team, or build her in charge speed instead of attack so that the boss targets someone else. This is just something to keep in mind. Given that a new solo raid just started today, I do imagine that A2 will be pretty good in this fight. As for my final rating, I have debated this for almost a week now, but after all that, I think A2 is still worthy of barely making it to a 4 out of 5. This is probably the most generous 4 out of 5 I can give. I almost can't decide, as I previously wanted to place her at a 3 out of 5. I see A2 as a good unit, but I think she's a boring good unit. Sure, she can excel in certain conditions, but you need to use some of the best supports in the game to make that work. On the other hand, the niche does exist for tackling bosses that have a lot of parts. I remember in the last Union raid that everyone blew their Maldernia team on Mother Whale since it was very hard to fight with other teams. But I can see A2 as a second option to take on that boss with. That by itself is quite valuable, so that's how I see A2 stand out in this regard, and the main reason I'm willing to bump the rating to a 4. For general players, A2 is a good enough unit where if you want her to be good, then she can be good. But team building wise, I don't think she breaks any boundaries. Slap on some meta units that's literally good on anyone else, and she'll perform just fine. With NIKKE's expanding roster, something I love to see is when a new character makes an existing underused character more relevant. Once again, A2 does not do that. I would say if I had to choose one unit to have from the collab, it's going to be 2B by a small margin. I think she offers a more unique archetype that allows a few previously underappreciated units to shine, which expands your playable roster as a whole. Thank you for tuning into this NIKKE guide and analysis on the Nier collab unit that is A2. I'm currently in the works of creating a series of guides for new players, as well as some guides on existing characters in the game. Stay tuned for content just like this, and always remember, have fun with the game.